You stared blankly forward, inside of a grand library room. The floor was flat, with a red and black chess pattern. Fireplace lit somewhere behind you, giving the room some much-needed ambience. Seemingly endless rows of books stretching out around you, so far that the ceiling was drowned in blackness. You are staring at the wall with the door leading out, as the library was quite difficult to maneuver and you didn't want to get lost. It was some much-needed peace. Today's adventure had dragged for a few days now. The adventure you were on had dragged on for days now. Kane had introduced it as a murder mystery. Its initial title was The Vanishing of Count Counting Days. And as an advanced adventure, this time each of the former humans was given an artificial backstory. In your case, you were given the role of Count Counting Days' daughter. And the moment you arrived in the Gregorian manor, filled with faceless NPCs, you had been grabbed and carried off into what was supposed to be a room. Honestly, you had felt terrible. For one, you were afraid. Sure, the adventure was called The Vanishing of Count Counting Days, but perhaps you were on the chopping block as well, as his daughter. Plus, what about the other characters? Well, as it turns out, Jax and Ragatha were simple butlers, Pomni a detective, Zubul a noblewoman guest in the house, as that was the only way Kane could convince her to participate. Kinger was a singer, given a new voice by Kane specifically for the adventure, while Gangle was playing the role of a simple maid. Jax using every moment as a butler to order her around whenever he got the chance, so he could be lazy and make her do all the work. It was on the first night, during a special party, when an NPC called out the Count on the stage, that he wasn't present. After a search party was sent throughout the gigantic manor the adventure took place in, he was eventually discovered in the so-called piano room, murdered. A butcher knife stuck in his head. It was difficult for you to pretend to be distraught over the death of what was supposed to be your father. After all, you just met him today. And then the real meat of the adventure began. Who was the killer? The obvious answer was any NPC that wasn't just a faceless mannequin, out of which there was just one. The manor's cook. A female NPC that looked like a cheese wedge with cartoon arms and legs, with a chef head by the name of Swissy. Problem was, she had spent the entire day in the kitchen and was nowhere near the piano room, which left most of the characters puzzled. With no real clues being found, after all, Pomni wasn't Sherlock Holmes. So the adventure was stuck, and she felt quite guilty about that. The NPCs by now were just repeating their lines, except for Swissy, who clearly had a more advanced AI and more processing power dedicated to her. Everyone sort of fell into a rhythm, not giving a shit, except for you. After all, the faceless mannequin NPCs were programmed to suspect you for added drama. They made you feel watched, and you were quite scared one of them would snap and just deliver their own justice onto you. It's why you were hiding right now in the study. For a moment you considered taking one of the books, but you knew already that they all were empty, as Kane didn't think the adventure would take longer than a day or two. The door to the study was slowly opened, and Jax's purple bunny head poking in. "Sup?" He grinned. "What do you want?" You sighed loud enough for him to hear. We're all looking for you. You furrowed your brows. Why? Pomni is about to announce it was all self-deletion. You blinked perplexed, watching as Jax approached you. He was dressed in a black suit with white gloves. But it's clearly Swissy. Jax sighed, stretching himself. We all know it's Swissy. She's the only NPC with an actual model. You crossed your arms, grumbling. Ragifa is suggesting glitching out of the map and looking for the NPC models Kane is using for the adventure, thinking there's a special killer NPC we haven't even found yet. Right. Thing is, we don't know if she can get out of there, since there aren't any vehicles we could use to glitch back into the map. King is still trying, and Ganglis is training him as we speak. Oh, jeez. Everyone was going crazy. Yeah, if I had known that killing the old fart would completely break the adventure script, I wouldn't have done it. Your head shot up to look at him. You did what? He raised both hands defensively. Hey, I thought it would end the adventure immediately. Plus I was sick of getting ordered around by him. And by you. Angrily you stood up. I was forced to, you shouted, pointing a finger at his chest, which produced a honk. Blushing, you pulled your hand back. And he chuckled. Still embarrassed about your random clown noises, eh, Butter? Inside the digital circus, you'd become Butter the Clown. You had cotton candy-like hair, white skin that felt just a bit powdery, with an orange star shape painted around your right eye. You had a big round nose that honked when squeezed, and additionally, you had the ability to inflate your body like a balloon by blowing into your thumb. You used it to make your chest and butt a little bigger to feel a little more confident. Plus, Zuba was super jealous of your ability. Don't distract, you huffed. You killed my father! Butter, he wasn't your dad. He was an NPC. You blinked. Right, sorry. Oh God. Sighing, you hugged your own body. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because Swissy is the intended killer. Remember how everyone instantly accused me because I'm the most obvious suspect? I mean, you literally just admitted to doing it. He smiled brightly. Yep. But still, the adventure didn't end, even after being accused. You sat down on the chair. A terrible realization had hit you. Oh, God. What? We need to frame Swissy. Jax's face brightened up as he heard you say that. Quickly, he stepped behind you. Oh, Butter! He slapped your back encouragingly. That's why I love you so much. One of his hands rubbed over your right shoulder, and eagerly he sat down on the armrest on your chair. So, how are we gonna frame her, Butter? I mean, since she is the intended killer, I'm positive there are already clues. Unless the clues spawn in when she kills him. Unless they spawn in when she kills him, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't really be much of a murder mystery if we discovered the killer before the act. Jax snapped his fingers excited. He had just the perfect idea. Quickly, he jumped off the armrest. What are you thinking? You asked cautiously, going after him. Just come, I know what to do. This is gonna be hilarious. You chased after Jax, but just as you reached him at the door to the library, his arm snagged around your shoulder, immediately making you uncomfortable. Using your own momentum, he pulled you down. You shouted in surprise, and then he pressed his lips onto yours. For a moment you were too shocked to react, but as you felt his tongue into your mouth, your eyes rolled back, and you moaned into his embrace. His strong muscles pushed against you, tasting like wet carrots. Jax was quite the wet kisser. A lot of spittle was hiding inside his grinning mouth, and you couldn't help but slowly gulp down every bit of passion and lust he was giving you. His embrace tightened as he opened one eye, his arm raised. He pulled and tugged at you with your free hand to get you in just the most scandalous of positions. But you didn't care. You were receiving too much hot pleasure from the bunny man to resist. Something clicked and then flashed. You pulled away, a long line of spittle connecting your lips, as you fell on your back out of shock. Ow! You blushed hard, mumbling, "Oh, what was that for, Jax?" Sitting up, you watched him pull a picture from a cheap throwaway camera that was barely bigger than a smartphone. "Oh, I just gave Swissy a reason to kill your dad." Go to the ballroom, the others are there, and wait there for me. This will be hilarious. Confused looked after the rabbit as he rushed away. You could still feel the warmth of his lips. Your heart was pounding, and with a dumb expression you wandered downstairs into the ballroom where the NPCs and human characters were gathered. Stepping inside, you watched as Pomni was explaining how the Count slammed the butcher knife into his own head by having Kinger mimic it with a big chicken drumstick. With a curious expression, you stepped next to Ragatha, who was looking hopelessly at the jester and the chess piece. "Hey, Butter, where have you been?" she asked upon noticing you. I was making out with Jax." Ragatha gasped in shock, placing a soft, plush hand on your mouth. "Oh my God, what did he do to you? Did he, was it forced?" "What? No, not really. I mean, I think it wasn't forced. I didn't hate it." "Really? Why would anyone kiss Jax?" Your attention shifted back to Pomni, who just finished her explanation. But then an NPC chimed in. "But it still doesn't explain why." Confused, Pomni blinked. "Huh? Why did he do it? You just spent 30 minutes explaining how, but not why." "Oh, well, Stop the charade!" That was Jax. He had just entered the ballroom behind you, his chest puffed up. Charade? Jax stormed into the ballroom right in the middle of the NPCs and characters. He held up something, looking like the recipe book of Swissy. Confused, the cheese NPC asked, "Why do you have my book?" But immediately Jax pointed at her. "Ha ha! You thought we wouldn't find it, did you?" He was being so over the top it was quite humorous to you, but the NPCs were completely entranced. This probably was exactly what Kane wanted. He opened the book to page 69 and gave the book to Pomni, her face turning into a disgusted and shocked grimace. What the? Butter! What did you do with him?" "She knew of our affair, Butter!" he shouted over Pomni. Concerned, everyone was now looking at you, as Jax's hand motioned for you to step forward. Gulping, you approached Jax as he continued. "Just look!" Without hesitation, he ripped the recipe book from Pomni, holding it up to your face. On the page, glued, still a little wet, was the picture of you and Jax kissing. Under it, hastily written, obviously in Jax's handwriting, were the words, "Revenge, I love you, Jax." With the A in Jax replaced by a terribly drawn heart. You gasped, realizing what he was trying to do. Inhaling through your nose so hard it honked, you shouted,
"It is true! Me and Jax, we were having an affair!"
You grabbed him, hugging him tightly before whispering into one of his ears, "Go beep yourself, bunny boy." Quickly you pressed your mouth onto his, causing a frightened gasp to go around the entire ballroom. You hummed loudly and over-exaggerated as you tried to be as convincing as possible, but the kiss became more intimate as he wrapped his arms around your hips. And after about a minute, you realized the others were still there. Embarrassed, you pulled away.
"I am in love with the butler of the house,"
you shouted.
"But this,"
you held up the book,
"is proof that someone else was in love with Jax too."
Turning around, you pointed at Swissy.
"This was the perfect crime. You would pin the crime of murdering my father on me, so Jax would lose his job, as there would be no more family to serve. Me in prison, my father dead. You would have had him all to yourself, Swissy. You are the murderer! Swissy, there's no other explanation for your recipe book being filled with evidence of my affair, as well as all those love messages from my Bunny Boo."
"Bunny Boo?" he asked quietly with a sarcastic tone. "Dial it back, Butter, jeez." Out of breath and sweating, you stood there, pointing your finger at the Swiss cheese piece. Exhausted, you breathed. The NPC meanwhile looked scared around the room before screaming and running outside. "After her!" shouted Kinger, which caused all the NPCs gathered to rush out of the ballroom after Swissy. Leaving you, Jax, Pomni, Ragatha, Gangle, and Zubul alone. "What the beep was that?" grunted Zubul.
Are you guys really, you know..."
Pomni asked as she approached. Of course not," he stuttered, blushing hard. Yep, we just wanted to frame Swissy to get this beep done." As if on cue, the escape portal to the digital circus opened before the door that led to the rest of the manor. "See, we're done." "Huh. I still think Jax killed the dude," said Zubul dismissively, as she walked through it without a second glance, as well as the others. Meanwhile, you and Jax stood behind for a quick second. "So, are we going to beep once this is done?" You looked at him, grinning. "Of course!" Hey, thank you for watching my video until the very end. I'm very grateful for that, and I would like to ask you to please share the video around on social media so more people can see it. And that's it really. But before we say goodbye, I would like to say thank you to all of my lovely channel members who so lovingly support me. We have Giovanni Moriarty, Twilight Mia, Zoe, Angel, Angry Boxman, Hella, BitBit, Melofia, Anonymous Weep, Zachary, Nicodemus D, and Valerie Wings. Thank you for being wonderful, darling stewards. And of course, let's not forget all of my other lovely darlings who support me. Thank you for your support. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.